Minister Dr. Andrew Holness says he hopes the conduct and professionalism of the men and women of the Jamaica Constabulary Force will serve to deepen the respect that civilians have for the police. Speaking on Wednesday at the JCS Passing Out Parade and Awards Ceremony, the Prime Minister says this deeper respect will allow the police to get compliance from the public without having to use force.
I appeal to all the graduates here today and to serving officers that while we are experiencing significant reduction in crime, we must move to a new phase in our development. And that is the phase of sustained peace, where you get compliance without the need to use force. You get compliance because your force, your organization of resources is respected, not from fear, but because the values and principles that you espouse are trusted and clearly seen by the citizens.
Just over 280 recruits graduated on Wednesday from the National Police College in Twickenham Park, St. Catherine. Dr. Holness urged them to place a premium on being respectful when interacting with members of the public.
This is not an abstract concept. It is the foundation of legitimate authority. Every Jamaican, rich or poor, powerful or vulnerable, deserves to be treated with dignity. And as your Prime Minister, I demand that every one of you here who will wear the uniform and ascribe unto yourself the authority of the state as an officer of the law, that you must treat every Jamaican with dignity and respect for their rights.
Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness. Opposition leader Mark Golding is concerned about how a proposed amendment to the Financial Investigations Division FID Act will compel the head of that entity to give certain information about Jamaican citizens to a foreign power. He outlined his concerns in the House of Representatives on Tuesday as Parliament debated amendments to the FID Act.
The new subsection 4 of Clause 12. This is setting out the parameters in which the Chief Technical Director is authorized to disclose information about a Jamaican citizen, potentially to a foreign department, foreign law enforcement agency. The disclosure is required for the purposes of that entity's functions, then yes, I can see why we'd want to share that information. But the question to my mind is, why would you want to share it with them if it's not? To me, that opens the door too wide, and I would like to see that door have appropriate limits around it.
The FID is a specialized agency within the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service, established to deter, detect, and investigate money laundering, financial crimes, and terrorism financing. Portfolio Minister Favour Williams says the amendments aim to broaden the FID's international standing, especially as it relates to the sharing of intelligence with its partners. Golding noted that the opposition is in support of strengthening the international framework, but he says some of the language used in the bill is nebulous.
These are the words I'm concerned about. To enforce laws administered by the division, body, department, or association of departments. Now, it isn't clear to me what laws are administered by the FID, because when you look at the FID Act, it doesn't list, to the best of my knowledge, those laws which are to be administered by the FID. And so I was questioning the formulation of words used, because it's a scoping provision. It goes to the jurisdiction to share this information. That's what this provision does. So if the scope is too narrow or is unclear, it could be problematic. It could be contested in court, for example, and that sort of thing.
That's the opposition leader, Mark Golding. The bill was passed on Tuesday, despite the concerns. Meanwhile, Member of Parliament for South Manchester, Peter Bunting, questioned the authority that a cabinet minister can wield over the FID sharing of information about members of the executive.
Any minister can then write a letter to the head of the FID and say, for example, it is government policy that you don't share information on cabinet ministers. And would that now be government policy? It would not be public, it would not be transparent. So I don't believe that this corrects the mischief that Section 4 is trying to address. In fact, it makes it worse.
Peter Bunting, MP for South Manchester. President of the Jamaica Employees Federation, JEF, Wayne Chen, says the emphasis of Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness on economic independence rather than political posturing reflects a pragmatic approach to navigating the current global geopolitical climate. He was speaking on Nationwide at 5 on Wednesday.
Many years ago, maybe back in the early 1980s, the late Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, Via Bird, described us as mendicants with flag. And what he said in effect was that we may have political sovereignty in the legalistic way, but the fact is that because we were poor and dependent, we did not have true independence. The fact is that we have to pursue a pragmatic foreign policy as a vulnerable small island state, not a Singapore that, despite its small size, is militarily and economically powerful, but one that is economically and militarily weak.
There have been calls from some quarters for the Prime Minister to adopt a more forceful public stance on regional and international developments, including ongoing geopolitical tensions. On Tuesday, in his address at the Jamaica Stock Exchange Conference, Dr. Holness said his administration is steering Jamaica through this new geopolitical era with a focus on safeguarding the country's economic independence. Chen says leaders of small states must weigh several critical considerations before making public pronouncements on sensitive international matters.
We have to consider collateral banking relations because Jamaica needs to be a part of that global banking system that has been under threat in the past. We have to think about travel advisory, which make a difference between whether we have a tourism product to sell this year or not. We have to think about other bilateral arrangements. We have to think about the fact that remittances coming out of one country accounts for almost 50% of your GDP. So these are existentialist questions that leaders have to make. Ironically, many of the people who are calling for stridency have passports for other countries or reside elsewhere. Some of the most strident, I find, are not tied to here. They might be tied sentimentally to here, but they are not tied economically to here.
Wayne Chen, president of the JEF. Meanwhile, immediate past president of the MSME Alliance, Donovan Wignall, cautioned that while it's always good for leaders to speak frankly, certain statements may not always be in a country's best interest.
The Prime Minister has a country to run, and certain utterances can bring certain consequences. The Prime Minister has to learn to swim with the sharks and not be eaten, and not poke the bear. At the end of the day, he goes out and say something that will, bring consequences. Then the consequence will be on his head. So I think at the end of the day, he has to, so to speak, walk between the raindrops, be careful what he says, and always look out for the best interest of the country.
Donovan Wignall, immediate past president of the MSME Alliance. Meanwhile, trade unionist Helene Davis-White says while strategic diplomacy is important, Jamaica must not compromise or abandon its core values and policy positions.
I agree to a certain extent that the government, the Prime Minister, has to develop a pragmatic policy. But I don't think pragmatism means that you subsume totally your own ideas and principles and values and what have you to another country, military might, if you may want to call it that. It just means that you have to develop a means by which you can practice international relations in such a way that, as I think Donovan says, you are able to walk between the raindrops. And there are countries of the world that have done that.
Helene Davis-White, a trade unionist and a political commentator. They were both speaking on Nationwide at 5 on Wednesday. Cabinet is set to develop a short list of projects to be undertaken by the new National Reconstruction and Resilience Authority, NARA. Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness gave the update at the Jamaica Stock Exchange's 21st Regional Investments and Capital Markets Conference on Tuesday.
In a few days, I'll be making further announcements about where we are with NARA. We have just put out an advertisement for an executive officer to lead the entity. We have established it temporarily as a department of the Cabinet Office. Tomorrow, actually, the Cabinet meets to make the final decisions as to the organizational structure, the governance, the shortlist of initial projects that it will undertake, and the legislative agenda.
Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness. NARA was established to spearhead and oversee the national rebuilding effort following the damage caused by Hurricane Melissa. It's a statutory body established by special purpose legislation with a direct reporting line to the Office of the Prime Minister. NARA is vested with extraordinary powers and has a sunset date of 5 years, renewable by Parliament. Fishers severely impacted by Hurricane Melissa will soon be able to access grants of up to $1 million. Agriculture Minister Floyd Green made the announcement at a media briefing on Tuesday. Kalisa Wright reports.
According to Minister Green, over 3,000 vessels were damaged during the passage of the Category 5 system. He says engines and fishing pots were also impacted. At Tuesday's press briefing, Minister Green outlined a number of initiatives to facilitate the recovery of the sector.
We're going to be doing some cash grants to help our fishers treat with boat repairs and engine replacement. In fact, our cash grants will run from $150,000 all the way up to $5 million, depending on the level of damage and the size of the fishers. You know, we have artisanal, we have intermediate, we have our industrial fishers, and we are going to be providing support. In fact, already we've started to issue those grants, and I think about 5 of our intermediate fishers have already received $1 million to support the reestablishment of their boats and the replacement of their engines.
Minister Green says the ministry has procured boats to help fishers in need get back out to sea.
We are also going to be distributing boats. We had started a process where we have a program for our young fishers that we started the distribution of boats towards the end of 2025. We still have some of those boats left to distribute, and I think it's even more important now, but we will be procuring an additional 20 boats that we will distribute to fishers in need so that they can go back out.
The Agriculture Minister says with the help of stakeholders, over 1,000 rolls of fishing wires have been distributed. Minister Green also reminded fishers of the 6-month moratorium on fishing license renewal fees. Fishers can also access replacements of lost licenses free of cost through the National Fisheries Authority, NFA. Kalicia Wright for Nationwide News.
Meanwhile, Minister Green says contractors are on the ground at key fishing villages conducting refurbishment work.
We have allocated $180 million to our structural Hurricane Melissa recovery program, which is being implemented through the National Fisheries Authority. And we're doing it in 2 phases. Our initial phase, which started in November of last year, was immediate stabilization. So what we have been doing is, 1, helping to clear, clean, and remove debris from a number of our beaches so that our fishers would have access. If that was never done, our fishers would never have been able to go back out. And we did that in Black River, we did that in White House, and we have engaged contractors to do key refurbishment work in key fishing beaches.
He says large tanks have been procured to provide potable water for fishers.
We procured to treat with the shortage of potable water on our fishing beaches 10 large water tanks with a capacity of 2,500 gallons and assign them to fishing beaches across Alligator Pond, St. Mary's in Westmoreland, Montego Bay and St. James to provide potable water.
Floyd Green, Agriculture Minister. Now, the Agriculture Minister says over 300 arrests were made in 2025 for purdah larceny.
One of the big wins for us in 2025 was the establishment of the Agricultural Protection Branch of the Jamaica Constabulary Force. And we are already reaping the rewards from that. Now, the branch comprises of 75 officers operating island-wide. Arrests have risen from 78 in 2023. We had 139 in 2024. And with this new Agricultural Protection Branch in 2025, 381 persons were arrested for purdah last year.
The Agriculture Protection Branch, APB, was established to ensure proper enforcement of the Agriculture Produce Act and the Purdah Larceny Prevention Act, among others. Minister Green also highlighted that there has been a notable increase in the number of convictions.
We've also see increases in cases before the court, which have moved from 201 cases in 2024 to in 2025, a 68% increase, showing improved case preparation and prosecution readiness. And the one that I really love, convictions surged from 9 convictions in 2024 to 209 convictions last year, over 2,000% increase, which is really a breakthrough in terms of judicial success and offender accountability.
Floyd Green, Minister of Agriculture. And that's it for the local segment of the news. Up next, regional and international.
It's This Morning on Nationwide 90 FM. The time is
6:18.
For all your electrical needs, visit ABC Electrical Sales. They stock a wide variety of electrical supplies, including plugs, switches, panel boards, and conduits, plus energy-saving fixtures. ABC Electrical Sales stocks brands like GE, Siemens, Philips, Cutler Hammer, and Allen Bradley. They also offer free island-wide delivery just to suit your needs. Visit them at Shop 8, Hagley Park Plaza, Kingston 10, or call 876-754-3714-5 or 876-754-3825-8. ABC Electrical Sales, for a better choice in the electrical business.
In regional and international news this morning, the government of Trinidad and Tobago has yet to recognize the Venezuelan interim president and regime loyalist Delcy Rodriguez. Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs Sean Sobers says that the government has taken note of some degree of change within the neighboring country and was looking forward to seeing a democratic transition. He was speaking at a United National Congress news conference on Wednesday. He said diplomatic relations with the people of Venezuela remain intact. Rodriguez was sworn in after President Nicolas Maduro was extracted from Caracas by the U.S. military. She has been a fierce critic of TNT's role in welcoming U.S. forces in the region. International, U.S. President Donald Trump on Thursday launched his Board of Peace, but other major global powers and traditional Western U.S. allies have balked at joining. The board was initially focused on cementing Gaza's ceasefire, but Trump says it could take a wider role, stirring misgivings that it could undermine the UN's role as the main platform for global diplomacy and conflict resolution. Trump will chair the board, and permanent members are expected to pay $1 billion each. Apart from the U.S., no other permanent member of the UN Security Council, the 5 nations with the most to say over international law and diplomacy since the end of World War II, has yet committed to join. The signing ceremony was held in Switzerland, where the annual World Economic Forum of Global Political and Business Leaders is